When you're in a situation where your live service is doing worse than Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, oh yeah, that's real bad. It's looking like a pretty clear picture as far as long-term is concerned. This game will likely not survive for long. I'm referring to Skull and Bones, which launched not too far off from Suicide Squad, a game that's been in development hell for many, many years, and one that once it was sort of fully unveiled, it didn't garner a whole lot of interest because there are games like it out there that are just better. Now, before we get deeper into the state of Skull and Bones, let's look at where Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League is at right now. Critical reception is pretty meager. We're looking at an open critic rating of 18% of critics who would recommend this game. And on Steam charts, you can see right now that the number of players who are engaging with this game remains at the triple digits, which is really not a great sign of a live service that has long legs. It keeps dipping between sort of low to high triple digits. It usually tends to sit in the mid triple digits. And the reason it's even at higher triple digits right now is because the game recently went on sale. Looking at Steam right now, you can see that the game is 40% off. So that drew in some folks to check this game out at a cheaper price point, which was the smart thing to do. And so that is the cause of why we're seeing an uptick in players. But even that sale wasn't enough to really revitalize the current player base. The fact that even at 40% sale, the game can't break past the triple digits is not a good sign at all. And some aspects of the game are so broken as to make the experience unplayable to some that some people have even managed to successfully get a refund from PlayStation support, which is rather rare once you make a digital purchase. The fact that this is even possible might suggest that the game may be in a technically shoddy enough state for some where PlayStation is justifying giving money back and actually engaging in something that they usually don't do. And so, yeah, pretty bad situation. Unfortunately, I would have loved Rocksteady to knock this one out of the park and remind us of the good old days of the Arkham series games, but Suicide Squad, it's just a far cry from what made Rocksteady really special when it comes to, their particular speciality of game launches. And now with Skull and Bones, the critical reception is similar to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. On OpenCritic, though, if you look at the number of critics who'd recommend this game, only 12% versus Suicide Squad's 18%. And it seemed as though many heeded the words of critics as Skull and Bones, if you look at its performance metrics, the ones that can be gleaned at publicly, it is definitely performing worse than Skull and Bones, particularly on consoles, as reported here by news outlet Forbes, who noticed that Skull and Bones was very briefly inside PlayStation's top 10 most played games at launch, but then it just quickly fell out of that list entirely. Whereas with Suicide Squad at launch, it did debut at number 1, and it did eventually fall out of that list, but that happened a lot more slowly over time rather than an immediate fallout off that list. And it's important to note that this is including the fact that the game offers a free trial across all platforms, and it's not an insubstantial free trial. We're talking about being able to play up to 8 hours for free and carry progression over upon purchase of the game. The fact that the game is free for 8 hours was likely one of the only reasons that this game ended up at number 1 briefly at all, and the fact that it fell out so quickly likely suggests that a lot of people didn't proceed to purchase the game after their free trial was over, which means that Ubisoft likely didn't make any money at all from a significant portion of players who tuned into this game through that free trial. It also doesn't help matters that Skull and Bones was sold at the full $70 price point, and a lot of people don't feel like Skull and Bones has the substance to justify that price point, although Yves Guillemot will tell you that this is a quadruple A game, and that's why we're leading towards a $70 price point for this massive live service, when Skull and Bones feels like anything but. It doesn't do anything that makes it scale far beyond what your AAA games already accomplish, and the game also hasn't gone on sale yet. It's currently sitting at $70 for the base version of the game, though the deluxe edition or the more expensive premium editions did go on sale. So for some reason right now, Skull and Bones Premium Edition is a little bit cheaper at $67 than the base $70 price point. So I don't know what is going on here. I don't know why they wouldn't reduce the base game's price point as well so that they can take the floor of Skull and Bones price point and lower it, because clearly people aren't receptive to the fact that this game is $70. I mean, hell, even with a free trial, people aren't all that receptive to it. So maybe it's time to lower the price point across the board and, make it significantly less than $70 or even $67 to play this game. Also worth looking at is PlayStation's official stats for the top downloaded games of February 2024, as published here on the PlayStation blog. Scrolling down, you'll find a list that details that on February 2024, the number one top most downloaded game was Helldivers 2. Below that is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is at number 3, and I imagine that's a relatively tepid number 3 if, PC numbers are any indication. I imagine that Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League on PlayStation 5 did not achieve any substantial numbers. By Warner Brothers' own admission, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League's commercial performance was overall a disappointment and came below Warner Brothers' expectations. And so the fact that Skull and Bones is so much lower than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League on this list further goes to highlight how much worse Skull and Bones is performing, even compared to Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which already kind of set a pretty low bar, commercially speaking. On this list, when it comes to downloaded games in the US and Canada, Skull and Bones came in 8th place, even below games like Grand Theft Auto 5, which are many years old. Specifically, Grand Theft Auto Online still pushes copies of the game, but Skull and Bones being in, like a shiny brand new live service, it not being able to break top 5, it not being able to come close to the commercially failing Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, I mean, that is a significant indicator for how poorly this game is performing. And once again, there's a free trial for this game, and still the download numbers are seemingly not ideal. Now, in Europe, you can see that Skull and Bones is actually beating out Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, but not by much. Suicide Squad is in 8th place in Europe, and Skull and Bones is in 7th. Still not a particularly high bar to meet, commercially speaking. And going back to Suicide Squad's player numbers on PC, if this is what it looks like for this game, I can only imagine what those numbers look like for Skull and Bones. We don't know because Skull and Bones isn't on Steam. Ubisoft has relegated that game strictly to the Ubisoft Store and Epic Games Store, so there's no, like Steam charts equivalent for those launchers and storefronts. So we don't have exact figures there, but looking at the way the game has performed on consoles and seeing its place on, top charts when it comes to sales and downloads on PlayStation and Xbox, it's pretty apparent what the story is here. It's also worth noting that following the launch of Skull and Bones, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, which was the introduction of Ubisoft's naval combat system, and which many would argue is the better game compared to Skull and Bones because it actually lets you be a pirate instead of just controlling a ship, and it lets you have boots on the ground experience as well, is currently performing better than Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. And if Skull and Bones is performing worse than Suicide Squad, then I imagine that those numbers are significantly lower than what Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag is pulling here. It's not even a huge uptick from what it traditionally draws in, but an uptick nonetheless. The 24-hour peak as of the recording of this video is over 1,300 players, almost 1,400 players, and over the last hour, almost 1,000 people are playing this game. And then further beyond that, a game of this genre that's thriving is none other than Sea of Thieves, which you can see right here is seeing 24-hour peaks of over 10,000 players. Just over the last hour, over 7,000 players are engaging with this game. And it's also worth mentioning that this game is going to be launching on PlayStation. This is a game that is owned by Microsoft and Xbox, but they've decided to release this game on PlayStation because it's going to drive sales and it's going to make them a lot of money. And it seems as though that strategy is going well, judging by the fact that Sea of Thieves is currently the #1 best-selling pre-order on PlayStation Network in the United States as of March 9th, 2024, ahead of the likes of Dragon's Dogma 2 and the Elden Ring DLC Shadow of the Erd Tree, And we're looking at 2 editions of Sea of Thieves, sort of taking up 2 of the top 5 slots. The premium $60 edition is at number 1, and the $40 base edition is in 5th place. Now, it's worth noting that in the following days, placements did change a little bit. Sea of Thieves, the premium edition, is now in 3rd place, and the base edition is in 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place, but still a really solid results. This goes to highlight that the interest surrounding Sea of Thieves as a long-term live service is still pretty strong, and that Microsoft has done a good job in maintaining it and generating buzz surrounding it to draw the PlayStation crowd into wanting to check this game out. And, this means that more people can play Sea of Thieves, and Microsoft can make more money off of this game, and they can spread the game to a wider audience base and make the IP just bigger in general. Now, Sea of Thieves has been out for longer, and initially it did struggle, and so who knows if Ubisoft will somehow be able to pull off a major comeback with Skull and Bones. But the thing about Sea of Thieves is I find the concept of that game to be far more compelling, and I think a lot of people would agree, because in Sea of Thieves, you play as pirates who are pirating around and also managing a ship, whereas in Skull and Bones, you play just essentially the ship, and the pirating aspect kind of takes a back seat. And so Sea of Thieves just feels like a much more fleshed out pirate experience. So, why would you want to play Skull and Bones when you've got something that, I think many would argue is a substantially more fleshed out experience when it comes to this particular genre? That's not to say Skull and Bones doesn't do its own thing with its naval combat system, but generally I think that people who prefer a game like Sea of Thieves, where you are the actual pirates, far outweighs the crowd who would prefer something like Skull and Bones. Yeah, it's going to be a struggle for Skull and Bones to come back unless they introduce so many new features and elements like, more boots on the ground situations and gameplay that can maybe allow this game to compete against Sea of Thieves. Unless something like that happens, it's hard for me to imagine Skull and Bones making a comeback or being able to compete with the likes of Sea of Thieves or even Ubisoft's own Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. So we'll see how long Ubisoft sticks with Skull and Bones and what their plans are for this long-term live service. One thing about Ubisoft is they are stubborn, with live services that launch in a rough state. They tend to stick with it, and every once in a while you get a comeback like Rainbow Six Siege, which went from the biggest dud to one of Ubisoft's most successful games and now one of the most successful franchises and live services that generates a lot of money. They stuck with it, they fleshed it out, and they allow this game to garner a mass audience over time. Can they do something like that with Skull and Bones? It's hard to say at this point. But right now, its performance is so abysmal that it's hard to be optimistic about such prospects, for now at least. But in the meantime, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on the current situation with Skull and Bones, and what you think this game needs to do to come back to recapture interest from gaming audiences. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.